Hi, my name is Andrew McMillan, and I run a company called Fountainhead Ventures. We're based in Harrogate, North Yorkshire, and we concentrate primarily on residential and conversion for the domestic market in the UK. We're currently working on a really interesting project. It's called Church Farm, just on the edge of Harrogate, north about 6 miles from the center of town. It's located in South Stanley, and the thing that makes it unique as opposed to a lot of our other projects is it is predominantly new build, and for the first time ever, we're using a product called SIPS.
What are SIPS? SIPS, or structural insulated panels, are a great way of achieving a super insulated, airtight home.
It's a very unusual site. We purchased it with outline planning for 9 houses, 2 conversions, and 7 new build. The interesting thing of it is that it had a vacant building credit, which meant that we could tear down these old, modern agricultural structures, and in their place, we could build 7 brand new buildings. And we're very fortunate with the planning that we were able to design very modern structures in addition to the 2 barn conversions on the site. It's almost 4 acres, 3.68 acres. Typically on a site of that size, you would see anywhere from 30 to 50 houses being built by a volume builder. We're restricted to 9 units, which means we can build large structures. We can build these structures with very large footprints as opposed to multiple stories. We've worked very closely with the planning department to design something that's a little bit outside of the normal structures you would see in a rural village. So we're not building cottages out of stone, we're not doing barn conversions, although there are 2. But of course for this film, the primary reason that we are talking about our 7 new build is because we have designed them in a very modern fashion in what some people would call Scandi style. They look very much like a historical barn structure, and they're simple with gable ends, and yet the construction methods that we're going to be using are very cutting edge. So we will be building the structure of these 7 new buildings out of SIPS, which are structural insulated panels. Essentially, it is insulation that is sandwiched in between 2 oriented strand boards. That's an OSB 3 board. 3 designates that it's moisture resistant. Oriented strand board is a very structurally sound product. That is used on either side of an insulation core to give you this SIP panel. There are 2 main reasons to build out of SIPS. The first one is it's just a lot quicker. They can manufacture 2 houses a week in a manufacturing facility where they actually cut up all the components, the panels, to create everything that goes into each house. And each installation crew can erect a house every 2 to 3 weeks. The second reason is because of the green credentials associated with SIPS. SIPS are often used for passive houses for this reason. They have a very low air porosity infiltration, 15 times lower than standard methods of construction. And of course that's important because about 40% of any heat loss in a home is lost through air infiltration.
You think all OSB is basically the same? Well, you'd be surprised.
The other aspect is the materials that are used. Oriented strand board uses 85 to 90% of the log, as opposed to a lot of standard stick-built structures. And the other thing is, contrary to what a lot of people think about this type of rigid insulation, is that only about 2% of it is plastic, the rest of it is air. Something to keep in mind with this process when you're using SIPS panels is that typically the design process is much more complex. Not only do you need your own architect and engineer, but then you'll be introducing to the project the SIPS technician and their engineer. Once it's designed by our architect, we would then go and find a contractor to use, and then it would be 3D modeled and further designed by their own in-house designer. So very quickly we knew that we had to make sure and select the right contractor to partner with. Ruined it right at the end. Son of a bitch. So after a lot of research, we decided on a fairly local company called SIPS at Clays, based out of Skipton, North Yorkshire. They have about 16 years of experience. They started doing this in 2003. They're probably one of the bigger, most experienced SIPS manufacturers / installers in the north of England. We met with them, and very quickly we could tell from their design team and their manufacturing facilities that they really knew what they were doing. I'm here with Ian Clay of SIPS at Clay, based out of Skipton. We're here at their factory, and we're just going to have a little look around, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what they do here. I'll start off by kind of maybe telling you what I remember from our last little tour.
Okay.
But, so you get these panels in from Kingspan.
We get panels in varying lengths, for anything from 4.8 metres long up to 7.5 metres long. The panels are made at Sherburn in Elmet, just outside Selby. The panel itself is made on a continual line, whereby the foam there starts off as a liquid. It gets very, very hot. The OSB is moving along the line. This gets pumped between the two sheets of OSB. It gets very, very hot and expands. During that process, there's a bonding takes place between the foam and the OSB, and it's called autoadhesively bonded. So it becomes very, very strong, the bond formed there.
These panels can technically be manufactured by anybody, but it was important that we use a panel that was BBA certified and that had the weight of a fairly big name behind them in terms of their warranty and their experience in manufacturing a product such as this. Clays only use Kingspan Tech panels. Kingspan, which is obviously a very common name, familiar in England for being a manufacturer of this extruded polyurethane foil-backed type insulation. They use a process for bonding that virtually eliminates any issues around delamination. So that was really important to us because, of course, these structures have got to last for 100 years, and we're going to be responsible for going back and attending any warranty issues. That might change the size of that. After we got the initial price back, we then went with the architect to meet their designers so that we could work through a number of the elements that were clashing with each other in terms of our design versus the limitations of the SIPS design. They're not necessarily limitations, but oftentimes you've got to find solutions so that you can keep those aspects of your design. And that's what's so essential in using a company that has a lot of experience in designing in this product, is because they know what you can achieve using their products and what you can't, and you need to look for alternatives.
It goes up and down there.
So how thick is that then?
That's 360, which is the same. What I've done in the past is architects who want this look on the end want it to be the same thickness all the way around. So it was my thought that if those beams are going to be 360, you'd put those in at 360, and then your details very similar then for finishing it off. Okay.
Once the design is complete, they make a set of cutting drawings, send it to the guys in the workshop, and off they go. So how quickly will you, once you have the cutting drawings, how quickly can you produce all the panels for a house?
We can do 2 to 3 houses a week in here, depending on the size and the complexity of it.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we can fully fly through it.
2-3 weeks on site? Or?
Yeah, a couple of weeks for an average house. You know, bigger houses tend to be a little bit longer than that, but yeah.
And how many guys do you have in here?
There's about 7 on the shop floor, and then there's Darren, who's a partner in the business, and Stefan, who's a CAD designer. So
and then
2
how
CAD
many,
designers in.
So you've got 10 guys in this
in this
here,
unit working here, and then there's 2 or 3 teams of fitters.
And how many in a fitting team?
2, 3, 4, just depending.
Right.
We're on with a big job at York at the minute, and there's 4 fitters on site there.
Aside from talking about SIPS, and obviously we're going to cover a lot more to do with SIPS in future episodes, but there's also 3 other aspects that we hope to cover during filming. standing seam roofs and concealed gutters and downpipes. Katnick is now manufacturing a new product for use in these methods. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, exposed aggregates, using exposed aggregates for walkways, patios, that sort of thing, which is used in the States quite a bit. And thirdly, the use of formed concrete for basements and for dwarf walls. Not something that's commonly used over here, but we're going to touch on that and show you methods around that and how it works out on site, because we think you'll be interested in that as well. You may be wondering why we're doing this and what we want to get from this. I think when I was looking at using some of these methods and products, I struggled to find a source that really could illustrate every aspect of using the product, what I needed to know about it. And something I think people fail to realize, even working in construction for 25 years, is you're always learning, you're always finding out about new things. If you don't do that, if you're not learning and reading and trying new things, you'll still be building the same old product that they have been for the last 100 years. And people are still doing that today. So if you get excited about new things, if you want to do something different, I think you can get a lot out of this. So if any of that stuff sounds of interest, please hit the subscribe button and come back and check out more of our videos.
I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back.
The reason we've decided to use SIPS are for two. No, that's
For two.